Well, welcome everybody. It's unfortunate we couldn't meet together, but there's not a whole lot on the agenda. I thought it'd probably be just a good idea to do it virtually with the uptick that we had in cases. So, somebody want to take roll? Or I call the meeting order and we'll take roll.
Okay, I can do roll. Polk County, Matt McCoy.
Here.
Pleasant Hill, Sarah Kravosky.
Here.
West Des Moines, Steve Gear.
Here.
Altoona, Kyle Mertz. Ankeny, Gary Lorenz.
Here.
Clive, Ted Weaver.
Here.
Des Moines, Chris Coleman.
Here.
Norwalk, Stephanie Riva. Polk City, Jeff Walters.
Here.
Urbandale, Bob Andewig. Scott Brennan.
Here.
Andy Lunan.
Andy's not going to be able to join us today.
Okay. All right, thank you. Is there anybody else online that I have not called? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Item number 3 is vote of the approval of the agenda.
I'll move it.
Second, Stephanie.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes. Item number 4 is consent and vote on contracts and expenses. Todd, do you want to do this?
Sure. Thank you. This is an invoice from the Street Collective. This is an annual invoice we've helped support some of their outreach programs on bike and ped issues and helping communities plan for their bike and ped activities that they do. The amount is $20,000. We budgeted for this. We would recommend approval. I'm happy to answer any questions.
What services do we provide, Todd, for this?
We do some mapping for them. We also help convene meetings with local governments, Bike Collective, partner with them on some of their rodeo programs.
So do you see a need for ongoing support for this, or is at some point is it going to get self-sufficient?
It's a good question. Their funding model is looking at sponsorships. I don't know if they'll ever be efficient. They'll always be looking.
Steve, Todd, I share long-term concerns, but I do know that this has been a really tough year on their self-sustaining model of selling bikes and operating their bike shop with COVID. So I can probably, I can support it this year. I do have one other comment, but I do think that we should have an exit plan long-term in helping them, become self-sufficient. My one comment I'd make is that I'm happy to provide funds for services they provide, and I think they're good and necessary. I don't really like the idea that they tend to lobby a lot and against the cities that are funding them here. And I think we have to find a really careful balance there, or there's going to be long-term issues. So service is great, the work that they do, and recognizing they have a really bad year in their shop of generating funds, I'm happy to support it. But I do think we should have an exit plan.
I can start that discussion with Jeremy and on how we start pulling back, and also making sure our money's going to their services and not advocacy.
And Todd, why don't you add that item to the list of the committee, Sarah's Karen, the finance.
Sure.
So you guys have a chance to talk about it there.
Sure.
I'll move approval of it.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes. Item number 5 is vote approval of the meeting minutes for June 10th, 2020.
I'll move approval. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes. Item number 6 is report and vote on the final 2021-2024 Transportation Improvement Program. Dylan, are you taking this or is Todd?
I can.
Probably Hiroshi.
Yeah, Shiroshi's.
Shiroshi, okay.
Sorry, we didn't get you the list earlier.
That's all right. I can probably muddle my way through it for sure.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So as you all know, the MPO staff has been working over the last few months to develop the federal fiscal year 21 through 2024 Transportation Improvement Program. The Transportation Improvement Program, or the TIP, includes all federally funded projects within the region for communities that have received federal funding for their transportation projects. So this document is developed with the help of input from our member communities, and we have been reaching out to them and have received feedback from them on the projects that they receive federal funding on. So draft TIP document was developed and was made available for public review and comment earlier last month. And we have received a few comments and corrections, fairly minor in nature, nothing in terms of funding or other major changes, and those have been incorporated into the final draft. We also submitted a copy of the draft document to the DOT for their review and comment, and they gave us a few corrections that have been again incorporated into the final document. All of them technical, no big changes. So so with that, also one more thing to add, we held a online public meeting for the TIP on June 24th. We, however, did not receive any members of the public who joined us for any questions or comments on the TIP. At this time, we have finalized the draft document, and we are seeking your approval, following which we will submit the final TIP to the DOT on July 15th. So with that, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer. Otherwise, we are seeking approval of the 2021 through 2024 Transportation Improvement Program.
Great. Any questions for Shiroshi? Any comments?
Just one. Hiroshi, did you make the decision to put a link to the application in there or to include the application in Appendix B?
We've decided to make a note of the link to access the application, since the applications itself are fairly long. So we decided against inserting the full application.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Shiroshi. This is a voting item, so if there's no other questions or comments, I would love to have a motion.
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes. Item number 7 is report on fiscal year 2021-2024 Transportation Capital Improvement Program.
This is Aspen.
Is this Aspen that's going to do this?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm still working on this year's upcoming TCIP report. I'm waiting on a few select jurisdictions to get me their data that they're still putting together. So the numbers you're about to see are by no means final, but they should be ready to go for our meetings in August for review and approval. But I'll just go over the projects we have so far and a few changes from last year. Next slide. So with the overview of projects, we have about 97 million more funding dollars that were reported this year so far, opposed to last year. And a few reasons for that might be we have more jurisdictions that submitted data this year. Last year we had, I believe, 13, but this year we have about 15 or 16 jurisdictions reporting projects. And we also have a new category of projects, which is hazard mitigation, due to our contract with Polk County. So that's a little bit of a difference. And then for project types, next slide. No surprise, roads and parking lot projects are still the bulk of where the funds are going. But this year so far, roads, bridges, and pedestrian and streetscape projects are our top 3 categories, whereas last year the report indicated roads, intersections, and pedestrian streetscape projects were the top categories. And this might change a little bit because as I continue to finalize the tables, a few roads projects might be listed right now as roads projects, but in their descriptions, they might really be intersection projects. So I just have to continue to sift through that and make sure that the reported projects are falling into the right categories. So again, these numbers pretty much what we would expect, but bridges bumped up rather than intersection projects. And then next slide talks about the funding by fiscal year. And pretty much the only difference here from last year is that last year's report indicated that most spending would happen right away in fiscal year 20, whereas the projects reported so far this year are indicating that most spending will happen a bit later, maybe in 2023. And that might be because funding right now is a bit up in the air. We don't know what's going to happen in the next few years with these coronavirus impacts. But otherwise, I will take any questions if you have any, but otherwise we will see the finalized report in August for your review and approval.
Aspen, thank you. Is there any questions for Aspen? I hear none. I'll move on to item number 8 is a report on the transload facility. Who's going to do that? Zach?
Yes, I've got this one. So just want to give you a quick update on where we're at with the transload facility. The EA is out for public comment, so that'll be up available for the public to comment on through July 27th. It's a required 30-day public comment period. The draft finding of no significant impact, which is what we're anticipating will be the outcome of the EA, has been completed and is currently being reviewed by the FRA. They allowed us to do this concurrently with the public comment period to help us save time. In addition, DeWine Industrial is seeking their final engineering sign-off from the railroads. They have received sign-off from the Iowa Interstate Railroad, and they're anticipating that they'll get the sign-off from the NS, Norfolk Southern, here in the next week or so, they're anticipating. So that's where we're at with the environmental assessment. As far as the grant agreement goes, we're just essentially waiting for the completion of the environmental assessment process. The agreement's drafted and it's just waiting those things for it to be signed off on. Staff had a meeting with MPO legal counsel this morning to review the initial draft of a sub-agreement between industrial and MPO for the build grant. So we're currently working on that concurrently as well. Next slide, please. So to kind of give you an idea of the next steps over the next few months, as I mentioned, we've got the 30-day public comment period for EA, which is going to wrap up at the end of July. The funding has been developed and is being reviewed. Our goal is to have that all finalized and ready by the end of July as well, so we don't have to spend a lot of time working on it after that. The FRA has indicated that it could take up to 30 days for them to internally review and approve that FONSI. So we want to have that completed as soon as possible to help reduce that time. And once those things are complete, we can formally sign off on the grant agreement. Next slide. just to give you an idea of what the schedule looks like, we're anticipating that the grant agreement will be signed off on in September. Once that's signed off on, construction can begin. So as you see there under number 4, having construction begin in October of 2020. And with a project closeout date set for March 31st, 2022. That is actually probably quite a bit later than when the project will actually be completed. I know Des Moines Industrial is anticipating that they will have do as much work as they possibly can in 2020, weather permitting, and then begin work as soon as they can in 2021. And they're planning to have the facility operational as soon as they can in 2021. So we have built in a little bit of a cushion. That's something that the FRA encouraged us to do. So that's why you see that March 31st, 2022 date. But I anticipate that we'll probably, as weather permitting and other issues permitting, we'll hopefully have that completed in 2021. That's the update I have. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them at this time.
Do we have any questions for Zach about the transload? Good work. Thanks for the update. Item number 9 is the Purple Heart Highway update. Todd, you gonna do that?
Yes, sir. Thank you. As mentioned before, HMP is working on the updating of the 2012 study. We held a coordination meeting between some of the DOT staff, HNTV, and MPO staff early last week. That meeting went well. We talked through a couple of items we needed to finish. One of those being the travel forecasts were updated, and they're doing some analysis on that, as well as provided updated intersection turning movements along the corridor. All that feeds into travel characteristics that they need to update. We also looked at other highway to interstate conversions. Haven't done that continuously, but we found another example. Actually, Jonathan Gano from City of Des Moines had seen this on a personal trip and brought it to our attention. Arkansas I-555 was converted from a highway to an interstate in 2015. Also has slow moving traffic on it. They mark out 4 miles for farm vehicles along that corridor. I don't know if there's another slide, Dylan, or not. Nope. So the work continues. They should have their traffic done probably early next week, and then they can proceed on looking at cost estimates based on the criteria that were needed for an interstate. A lot of those have changed from that initial 2012 report. So a lot of those costs that were in that 2012 report, I think, will go down based on the new criteria from Federal Highway. Happy to answer any questions.
Any question for Todd? Todd, I'll just throw a comment in. Yesterday, as you all know, we went to the DOT office, met with the director, Scott Marler, and he was very supportive of this. You know, it'll be interesting to come back and see what the consultant says, but you know, I think we'll have our work cut out for us as a shared cost with all of us together and figuring out the best way to do it. But he was very supportive of it, but let's see what the consultant comes back and says.
Sure. Yeah, I was happy with his comments during the meeting.
Yeah, it was a productive meeting. Anybody else have any comments about this, questions? All right, we'll move on to item 10, report on the water trails update.
I'll do that as well.
Okay.
The project's still working on its original schedule moving forward. That they sent an out grant request to the Corps of Engineers. That's part of the process when they have to get into some of the core property, Prospect Park in this case. Permitting team held a pre-application meeting with the Corps' regulatory division on June 30th. That went very well. The design work continues. And they've got about 10% design complete on the Scott Street and for ingress locations. On the local side, West Des Moines Boathouse project opened up in June. So exciting to see those local projects happen. a draft of the build grant agreement is being reviewed by DOT and the highway, and the environmental document is progressing.
All right, anything else?
I think that's
Any
it.
questions about the water trails? All right, item number 11 is a legislative update.
I'll take that
Dylan.
one. Yeah, so last time at the policy meeting, I mentioned to you that the Invest Act had been introduced by the T&I committee in the House, and it had been going through debate. That did get approved on June 18th, and it was similar to what I presented last time, almost $500 billion in surface transportation funding. Since that time, though, the bill was wrapped into what's called the Moving Forward Act, which is a larger infrastructure bill. It includes not only transportation, but also energy and housing, and there's stuff for the Postal Service and healthcare and a lot of other stuff. That was approved by the House last week. However, it sounds like it's pretty controversial. It's being equated to just implementing the Green New Deal. And so the Senate and the White House have said they're not planning to take it up. So I'm not sure where that leaves things until after the election, probably, but that's where things sit at the moment.
I will mention too that I'm guessing we'll have a continuing resolution on the transportation bill, which is supposed to expire in September. I doubt we'll see much new money in that, but I've heard rumors of another stimulus package, which I think they want to get out before the election. So there may be some additional transportation money in that.
All right. Any questions for Todd or Dylan? Item number 12 is a report on upcoming events. Gunner.
Good morning, everyone. Good to see you all. No real update here, but just want to keep you abreast of our planning activities anyway. The Speaker Series Committee met yesterday, and we're starting work to re-engage with some speakers. The current thought process is that we want to have some speakers to keep the Speaker Series visible. I don't think we can maintain the same level of schedule that we did outside the pandemic, just because there's kind of fatigue around online events. And so we want to make sure that they're really good, and they also need to be very top to Des Moines. So we got to learn a couple of speakers, and if some of them come to fruition, I would be really happy with them. And I think we will be very pleased with some of the caliber speakers that we're exploring right now. That's it for me for now. Standing offer, if any of you know of speakers that would be good to bring into town or are being explored as coming to town as part of another event, please reach out to me. We would welcome the opportunity to partner on this. So that's it for me. If you have any questions.
Gunner, thank you. Item number 13 is other non-action items of interest to the committee. Anyone have anything?
Anything else you want to add about yesterday's meeting?
Yeah, I would just reiterate, and I appreciate everyone that was able to take part in it. I think it's great that we have an open dialogue now with the new director. I think that we're going to try to meet. I'd like to try to meet quarterly and see where we're at with some of these things. We talked about doing better communication in between the districts, and Commissioner Furman was also there. And I think that they understand our frustration. We reiterated that Andy does a good job, but our frustration when we have 3 different districts that are handling all the contiguous cities, I think that was good feedback for them, that hopefully they can do a better job of communicating, whether they switch around the districts or not, but at least communicating what we need to do. I think it went really well. If anybody else wants to jump in and comment, I'd be happy to hear from them.
I thought it went very well as well, Joe, and that they were receptive to the idea of how we interact with the districts, whether they change the boundaries or not. But I think it opened Scott's eyes a little bit on that. And then again, on the support for the Purple Heart Highway, and just overall, it was good communication to have with him.
It was good. At least we have a dialogue now. We're able to reach out. Hopefully when we have some availability that he wants to set up a meeting, come down and meet with the entire MPO. And so that would be a good thing if we can have him at the policy committee meeting, hopefully. I don't know when, but not virtually.
Hey, Todd, have they hired someone to take over for Dockstetter and district?
Not yet. Tony Gustafson is the interim district engineer. He was the assistant in the district prior to that. My guess is he'll end up with it, but they haven't formally announced it. So
I think that's another important meeting to have as soon as they pick somebody, to make sure in front of him or her.
Yeah. Yep, we'll do that.
Okay, anyone else have any other non-action items? Like I said, I appreciate everybody taking the time. Our next meeting is scheduled for August 12th. We do not have a policy committee meeting. And August 12th at 11:30. Hopefully we'll try to get together on August 12th. Otherwise, this meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.